is the most wonderful time of the month. Holy moly, where did the summer go? Wow, I cannot believe September is just around the corner. And so is fall, my favorite season. But anyway, as sad as I am to see the summer go, I'm really excited for some September anticipated releases. Come check what I'm looking forward to after the intro. And as always, I have this month's full anticipated release list in the September shelf of my Goodreads. I'll link it down below if you want to see other books I'm looking forward to. Even though pretty much most of them made it to this video, because the ones I'm looking forward to in September are hard to let go. But this time, hopefully, for real, without further ado, let's get to it, shall we? On September 2nd, we have some pretty good books coming. The one I'm looking forward to the most, spoiler alert, I already bought it, is These Toxic Things by Rachel Housel Hall. She delivered this book that is just impossible not to want to read. We follow Miki. She is a digital scrapbook creator, and she really prides herself in being able to get souvenirs, memories, and knickknacks from their clients and immortalize them in digital form. Her latest client is Nadia. Okay, so she gets 12 of these bibelots from Nadia, and she's working on the project. But after being commissioned, Nadia dies of an apparent suicide. Miki doesn't know what to do, but really touched and wanting to honor Nadia, she decides to go on with the project. As she goes on with the project, she gets very threatening messages saying, mind your own business, leave Nadia's past alone. Of course, Miki doesn't do that, and she starts looking further and further into the history of these curios. So Nadia used to travel around the country, and then whenever she would visit a flea market, she would get some trinkets. And those resulted in 12 of them that were given to Miki to immortalize. So Miki thinks, so what I should do now is actually look into the history of each of these items. How did Nadia get a hold of them? Who used to own them before? What is it about them? Only as she starts looking into it, she wakes a lone German serial killer. And the rest of the book doesn't sound great, guys. And I really want to support this creator. And it's probably going to be like the second book that I'll be reading in September. Or maybe even before that, if I finish all the books that I have to. And but you're not here for me to, go on a tangent, are you? Next, I have Whisper Cottage by Anne Wen Clark. And it's listed on Goodreads as having a secondary author, E.A. Clark. So I don't know to what extent they are dual or the contribution is minimal. But anyway, we follow Stina, and I hope I'm saying that name right, and Jack. They moved to this fixer-up cottage in rural England, and their cottage is kind of really next door close, almost like mirror image of their neighbors, Mrs. Barsley. Her property and her cottage obviously is in pristine condition. She's an elderly lady who's been living there for decades, and Stina befriends her, and they become quick buddies. But as Stina tries to find her way into the village, it soon becomes clear that not everyone around likes the old lady. In fact, she's the pariah of town. Everybody has stories about her. Some people are afraid of her and they have not so nice things to say, but Steiner doesn't see it all. So she's navigating her own emotions of liking her kind to her neighbor and the image that the villagers are portraying of the same person. So Steiner, who's pregnant, he starts to experience weird things, such as hearing noises in the middle of the night coming from her attic, and being the only person to see this weird man that lurks in the widow's garden. So is she just imagining things? Is that real? Is there more to the village's gossip? Or is it all in her head? We'll read and find out. So next I have Magpie by Elizabeth Day. This is a book that I decided to put, it's definitely one of my most anticipated books, but I decided to put on this video because I wanted to let you make a decision whether it's for you or not. Because based on the synopsis, it's either going to be a crazy, delicious, right? Or a book that I wish I would DNF. I don't think there's any halfway about this. We follow Marisa, who meets Jack. They have this whirlwind romance, and before you know it's been only a few months, but he invites her in. They move in together, and they start talking about having kids. Great, right? Up to this point, I'm not even needing to suspend my disbelief because I've been with my partner for 13 years, and we've basically moved in after barely knowing each other. My parents, I'll link this story here, got married, 3 months after knowing each other, so I know it can happen. Love is love, right? But the story gets more interesting because to make ends meet, I'm assuming, they take in a lodger, Kate. And here's where things get, interesting. Kate seems to take a not so healthy interest in Jack. And did I mention that she's obsessed with the baby that they are not even expecting yet? So obviously Marisa doesn't like it. She's starting to feel really uncomfortable and she shares her concern with Jack, who seems to think she's overreacting. It's not that big a deal. Red flag? But I just want to know because now Marisa is determined to find out the root of Kate's obsession and why Jake is not that bothered, even if it's going to cost everything that she holds dear. So I will read this book and I have high hopes. I hope it doesn't disappoint, but we'll see. Next, on September 7th, I have quite a few releases. First is The Girls Are Never Gone, and that's a YA horror. And they promise us that this book, written by Sarah Glenn Marsh, is The Conjuring meets Sadie, when 17-year-old podcaster Dare takes an internship in a haunted house and finds herself in a life or death struggle against an evil spirit. That's basically all I know. We follow Dare, what a great name for our main character, who has her own supernatural podcast, but is a non-believer. Of course, that's a fact that she hides from her listeners because she's trying to sell this image, right? And then, as the cards fall, she hears about the Erickton estate and its history. Apparently, the estate is believed to be haunted by the ghost of teenager, I have to read his name because I never heard it before, Ethelene Bell, who drowned some 30 years before. There, in her mind, thinks, okay, man, there has to be a man behind this all. It is very much human. There's no supernatural stories here. So she goes in, right, with an open mind because she wants to give her best to her listeners. But as she gets there, it makes it harder and harder and harder for her to remain skeptical. I'm really looking forward to this YA horror. At the very least, I'm hoping it's going to be extremely atmospheric. Next, I have another one. It's not YA, but it's borderline. It's written by Vera Kurian and it's called Never Saw Me Coming. This one I have really high hopes. We have Chloe, right? She's this freshman in college. She loves yoga lattes. She loves parties. And she loves fantasizing about killing her childhood nemesis. Well, oh, I forgot to mention she's a psychopath. But she just started college, a very prestigious university with a great psychology department, and she's one of 7 students who are part of a clinical study led by a renowned psychologist that wants to understand how the psychopathic mind works. And in order to do so, all 7 students wear a smartwatch that tracks their mood and movements. Things are going great. This seems like an amazing study, groundbreaking even. But then one of the 7 is killed, like murdered, killed, and Chloe doesn't like it very much because she's used to being the hunter, not the prey. So she's sitting on a very uncomfortable position for her. So of course she's determined to find the killer before the killer finds her. But in order to do so, she realizes she can't do it alone. Like, can she ask her fellow clinical study pals to help her? Because after all, they're all psychopaths. Can one really trust a psychopath? Next, I have The Haunting of Lee Harker. It's a horror by Darcy Coates. She lives in this house that she adores. She's been there with no problems for 10 years. But then weird things start happening in her house. She sees like shadow figures, radios turn on and off, curtains are drawn with anyone else around to do them. But here's the thing, she loves her house, so she's determined that she's not even gonna move. She has no choice but to start looking into the history of the house, and in doing so, she's getting closer and closer to an entity. And the closer she gets to figure out what's going on, the more she fears that she might not be able to escape the house after all. Sounds like it'll be a very scary haunted house story. We see. Next, I have an anthology. The Music of Murder and Other Crimes of a Strange and Bloody Nature. It's a horror anthology by Kurt Newton. I love horror movies. I'm just getting into horror novels. But forever, my favorite will be horror short stories. Because I love how most of them are told in the first person and they have ambiguous ending. And they are just mind freak in bite sizes. And this book did not disappoint. The first and the last stories in this book are more like a novella and kind of more on the psychological horror things. Like I would say it's more of a thriller horror blend. But we also have some pretty good short stories in the beginning. If you check this out, I really want to know what you think about Anatomy of a Betrayal. That was like my favorite in the whole book. If you like horror anthologies, I really recommend you check this out. Next, we have the Hawthorne Legacy, which is a YA and the part 2 of the Inheritance games. I've talked about on a previous video that I'll link it down below, where basically we're following Avery, who was the sole heir of the Hawthorne Legacy, even though she never met Mr. Hawthorne. The first book ended. We were led to believe that someone Avery knows from her past is a key component in figuring out, getting closer to the truth of why she inherited this and what Hawthorne's plan was. So in this book, we're going to follow her on their journey with the help of Jameson and Grayson, Tobias' grandboys. And I know I've talked about rock, paper, scissors ad nauseum, but this is just a reminder that the North American release date is September 7th as well. On September 14th, we have this book. I don't even know how to categorize it, but it's called Your Guide to Not Getting Murdered in a Quaint English Village. It's written by Maureen Johnson and illustrated by Jay Cooper. I read this book through a NetGalley arc, and I absolutely loved it. I'm going to buy it. It is a perfect coffee table book. It is short and sweet. The illustration is beautiful. They play with red, white, and black. And it is basically a tongue-in-cheek book that gives you hints on how to move to a quaint English village and not get murdered. Because we all know, if we watch Midsummer Murders, if we read any books, the moment you lay your foot on a village in rural England, there's a good chance that there's a killer just waiting for the opportunity to ace you, right? So I totally recommend this book. It's beautiful. If you love thriller, and especially if you love British mysteries, I think it's a great companion that will look great on any bookshelf. Next, I have YA Smoke by Tiffany J. Jackson. It is a YA horror. So the tagline says, The Haunting of Hill House meets Get Out in this chilling YA psychological thriller and modern take on the classic haunted house story. Okay, so in it we follow Marigold, who has her own ghosts, let's say. And her mom gets a new amazing job that requires them to move to this small California beach town. Life is perfect. The house is amazing. It's free of charge, given by the company. Despite her very annoying 10-year-old stepsister, Mary is finding that, her fresh start is starting after all. But then she starts to notice some weird things. First, it starts off with their house is the only nice house in the whole street. If that's not weird enough, door starts banging, noises coming from wall, lights turning on and off. So obviously, the house starts to seem pretty haunted. I think that's chilling enough that will make Mari want her own ghost back, right? But no, there's more. Piper, her 10-year-old stepsister, she starts talking about this friend that she's the only one seeing that keeps telling Piper that she really wants Mary gone. From this moment, things escalate fast. It's not just her house. It's not just a street. The whole town seems to be very sus. And can Mari convince her family to believe her before it's too late? Next, we have Apples Never Fall by Leanne Moriarty. Comment down below. Are you watching Nine Perfect Strangers? Have you read the book? I want to know. But in Apples Never Fall, we follow the Delaney family. They have, the parents and 4 now grown children. They love each other, even if they don't always like each other. But anyway, Stan and Joy are the parents. They are a community staple. They've always been involved in community life. They were the owners of this very prestigious Tanning's Academy. The whole family lives and breathes tennis. All the kids were really, really good at it, but they were just shy of greatness, so they never pursued tennis professionally, but they have very successful careers. Stan and Joy are old, and they feel that, it's time. It's time for them to actually enjoy the luxury life in their golden years after working so hard their whole life. So they sell the academy and they retire. They should be living their best days, where somehow they are just miserable. And then one day we have this girl, Savannah, who knocks on their door in the middle of the night, crying and bleeding, saying that she's escaping from her abusive boyfriend. The couple are really touched by it, and they extend like an act of kindness, take her in and help her. Not long after that, though, Savannah and Joy just go missing. And Stan, being the only one that survived that encounter, obviously is being interrogated by the police. He is crying to all four winds that he's innocent, and he might as well be. Who knows? The thing is, he is not very happy with his investigation and situation because he has his own secrets that he wants to keep buried. Now, where do the children fit in all of this? Oh, well, they basically are divided. Two of them swear by their father's innocence. There's no way he could have done anything to a stranger, let alone their mother. The other two are not so sure. So in it, we're gonna have an interesting family dynamics, and if this anything like any other Leanne Moriarty's stories, I know it's gonna have like a super twisting end, and it's gonna be like an onion that you peel it layer by layer. I'm sure there's better analogies. I just can't think of anything else right now. Hey, onions are not that bad. They give flavor, yeah? My Sweet Girl is next on my list, and it's written by Amanda Jayatisa. Sorry. But anyway, we have Paloma. She's this orphan from Sri Lanka that really wanted to live the American dreams and spent her orphanage days dreaming about the day where this beautiful American couple would come, adopt her, and she would be moving to America. Eventually, she gets her wish. And her dream is even better than she imagined before because these parents, they are perfection, and they shower her with everything that money can buy. But because they were such perfect people and perfect parents, at the back of her mind, Paloma always thought that she could never live up to it. Fast forward to the present, we now see Paloma as a 30-year-old who's been recently cut off from her parents' funds. She lives in this luxury apartment in San Fran, and she can't really afford it anymore. So she takes on a lodger, a room. But anyway, he comes in, he rents a room in her apartment. They start talking. Paloma's feeling really good about herself. It feels like she's paying forward because now she's helping someone else live their American dreams. She's wrong because suddenly Arun reveals to her that he knows her darkest secret. And this is a secret that can really jeopardize her stay in America and her whole life as she knows. It's a secret she's been hiding since her days in Sri Lanka. Not willing to lose everything, Paloma decides that she's going to pay him off. You know what? She's going to pay him off. Before she has a chance, though, she comes into her house, she finds him dead, face down in a pool of blood, and she loses it. She just runs from the apartment in shock, afraid that the police will come. But here's the thing, when the police gets to the apartment, there's no body, there's no blood. In fact, there's not even proof that a room ever even existed. Now Paloma's thinking, right? Is a room actually connected to her secret and the thing she had to do to escape in Sri Lanka? Now that he's dead, can she breathe? Are things really over? Or is this just the beginning and she's in a bigger danger than she anticipated? Then on September 15th, we have The Man Who Died Twice by Richard Osman. Is the second installment in the Thursday Murder Club. There's not much that I can say about this other than it is delightful. But it is funny in all the right ways and a great mystery as well. This book starts with Elizabeth receiving a letter from a guy from her past who out of the blue says, "Hey girl, I know it's been like 50 years or something. I mean, I don't know how long, but it's been a long time. I need your help now though. I know I didn't keep in touch, but I'm in a big mess that involves, a violent gangster, stolen diamonds, and I think I really fear for my life, and this is not just in my head." Okay, she should be freaking out, but no, man, she's giddy because the Thursday Murder Club is bored to death after the last case. Things are just going too well, so they cannot wait to get a hand on this mystery, especially as the bodies start piling up. So they are over the moon and they're super excited to join their forces, and they're determined to find a killer. Even better if they find the diamonds too. That is, if the killer doesn't find them first. So I'm really excited for this. This is a series that I enjoy. It puts me in a good mood, and it's just quintessentially British with great characters. So I'm looking forward to that one. Next, on September 18th, I have a horror book called Hetty by Eddie Generous. So in the beginning of the book, we hear about Hetty Stanley, who was like over a century ago a school teacher in this town that one day out of the blue just decided to murder all her pupils, disappear. Now we move on to the present day, and we see how a series of events bring Winona and her son Casey, as well as Dane, together. He moves in a house that he inherited that shares a property line with the old schoolhouse where family taught, but now has been converted into like a living house where Winona and her son Casey just moving to as well. They are both new to this town, so they quickly learn to rely on each other and build a friendship. Things happen, blah, 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 blah. But then one day, without warning, Casey goes missing. And as the police frantically chase Casey in hopes to find him before it's too late, Dane and Winona find the hard cold truth of the town. That children have been missing for decades, and there are some people in town that believe Hetty is behind it all. And now the question is, how much of that is truth? And who's gonna find Casey? Is it the police, or will Winona and Dane have to deal with the supernatural and hope to come on top? Then on September 21, I have a book that I'm expecting to be a quick slum curing thriller. It just sounds good, to be quite honest. It's called The Stowaway by James S. Murray and Darren Wearmouth. In it, we follow Maria, right? We first meet her 2 years before when she's being called for, the dreaded jury duty. And during the trial of the alleged serial killer, Mr. Butler, the jury is divided, but she's the Minerva vote, and her vote acquits him. That's it. I think at the time, she really believed that he was innocent and she spoke her truth. She continues to live her life, and now she's on this 2-week cruise vacation, I wish, with her family. Only as they are in the middle of the sea, bodies start popping up. And then the ship goes on lockdown because it's very clear there's a killer on the loose. And not only a killer, but a killer that is murdering people with the same MO as, that serial killer that she freed. Oops. So now, of course, she's really afraid. Is her choice actually going to cost her life or her kid's life? On September 28th, I have 3 horrors. 2 of them I talked about before on my horror prediction. So the first one is Horseman, A Tale of Sleepy Hollow by Christina Harry. And in it, we'll follow Ben, who is an inhabitant of Sleepy Hollow. The town is very much shadowed by the infamous events that put the town on the map, while most of the town swears up and down, including Ben's grandfather, that there was never a horseman. that the crane story is not even real, Ben is not really sure. And one of his favorite games to play is Sleepy Hollow. So they just go to the forest and they pretend to be, Crane and the Hapless Horseman. One day, though, they actually find a childless child in the middle of the woods, though. That's, I believe, where this reimagining story starts. Because is there truth to the story after all? Or is there something even darker looming in the woods? And next we have The House on Needless Street. And this is a book that I highly recommend, but I feel it's not for everyone. And it's a book that you better go in blind. In a nutshell, we follow Ted, a cat, and his daughter. They live in the titular house, so the last house on Needless Street. And they are more than meets the eye. They also are bound to each other by a very deep, dark secret. But they live in perfect harmony, away from the world. Only their symbiotic status is put to the test, or really threatened, by a new resident on their street. That's all I think I can say without spoiling anything. Last but not least, we have Summer Sons by Lee Mondello. This is a southern gothic horror novel with a bit of dark academia. And to be quite honest, I don't know why it's being released at the end of September, because I guess I can see this as a fall book, but it gave me more of like a hot, sticky southern summer vibe. So jury's out, man, but it is what it is. It's coming out. This is a book with great queer representation, and we follow Eddie and Andrew. They have been best friends since childhood, and they've been doing everything together, including attending this great, prestigious post-grad program in Vanderbilt. So they were both admitted to the program, but Eddie got early admission, so he moves to Vanderbilt 6 months before Andrew. Just as Andrew is about to join him, Eddie dies of an apparent suicide and leaves everything he owns to Andrew, including a gruesome phantom who is hungry for him and a deadly mystery with its roots in the past. That's it, my peeps. I hope you enjoyed this video. There's like a pattern that I can see, like the books are getting more and more spooky as they come. I cannot wait for spooky season and for the fall. And y'all, are you excited for any of the books to come? Is there any books that I didn't mention that you're super excited for and you think I should put on my radar? Comment down below. And until next time, be the hummingbird. Bye.